So had this happened 4 or 5 years ago, I'll be honest, I'm not sure that it would have come to light as quickly and as easily as it has now. But we've created a culture where we do believe in duty to report. We do believe that violation of civil rights is paramount to maintaining public trust. And before we'll answer some questions, but anything beyond that in terms of the criminal complaint, you do have to go to the U.S. Attorney or the FBI's PIO because we don't have the specifics as to those charges. I did note that in their criminal complaint, which I believe is available to the public, it's quite well documented. So there's quite a few points that are further elaborated on. In closing, I want to say to Jane Doe, personally, as a woman, the mother of 2 daughters, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. So with that, if there are questions anywhere from the public, this is live streamed, we'll take them. Otherwise, we'll call it a day. Anything? Yes, that was about I would say 15, maybe a 2-minute clip, and that was the basis of a lot of these accusations. Let's say it's 2 minutes. I don't know exactly how long that footage is, but that was enough really for the U.S. Attorney and the FBI to essentially formulate every charge in this criminal affidavit. There was more investigation that went on. There was some interviewing with the victim, Jane Doe, but beyond that, it was pretty clear cut. If we didn't have body camera, it may not have ever come to light. Body cam, no, well, car cam. We don't know where his body camera is. He claims it was stolen. We don't know where it is. But that car camera, and by the way, I want to say this agency has had it for many years, I think since the early 2000s, so it's been a very valuable tool, and it's a very good quality film. So it's trained not only off the front sides of the vehicle, but on the internal back seat where prisoners or people being transported sit. So it was clear. The body cam, sir, we've never found it. At least that I'm aware of. I don't know. The FBI didn't advise me. Well, be aware that part of a supervisor's job, whether it be sergeant, lieutenant, or captain, is to monitor their personnel and to routinely yet randomly check body cam footage. So that has always been done, or not always, but certainly since my time here, and since body cams became required by the state, which was, I believe, 2 years now, almost 2 years. So does it, in a way, our system worked. Our system worked. That's what I say. If we had encountered this 4 or 5 years ago, I'm not sure that the system would have been in place to have caught this. So will there be additional changes in that respect? No. I think to my command, I'm going to say continue doing what we're doing because we found something. Backgrounds are pretty extensive, as you might imagine. It's no different than cadets or recruits. And we actually contract with a company that does the background investigations. They are incredibly thorough, and they go back, I believe, almost 10 years in somebody's, about 10 years. Well, it's everything from reviewing credit histories to determine if there are addresses we don't know about, to contacting not just the HR departments of agencies, but to their whatever they call internal affairs. So it's very thorough to see whether they have those kinds of backgrounds, especially on laterals that are coming in. Flagged. Correct. I do not know, sir. Yeah, he came in late November. He was hired November 14th or mid-November. And by the way, it's not lateraling over. They are new hires. In other words, they're not just sliding into existing positions. They come to us. We just call them lateral, but they are fully vetted, just like our cadets would be. In fact, there's really no difference other than we're checking. We also check with the Law Enforcement Academy Board, who, of course, takes complaints from other agencies. So it's a very thorough situation. No, I really don't. And I hired him. I mean, ultimately, I'm the final say, and I review all of these packages and packets, and there was nothing that was really significant to me that would have prevented it. He hadn't been, to my knowledge, in law enforcement a long, long time. So that also kind of speaks to, sometimes people move to find their place. Does that make sense? They want to find their culture. And so it's not necessarily they're moving because of negative things, or family members move for jobs or something, that brings them. So I will say that what the person you see here, quite frankly, was not the person I hired. Okay, just was. You know, I've actually lived through this years ago in California, and I will tell you that it wasn't in my department, it wasn't where I worked, but it was a neighboring department, and it had a real ripple effect for several weeks, if not months thereafter, when word reaches out to other law enforcement agencies. Unfortunately, this affects us all. This isn't just a one-off, right? So I will say, in my experience, there is not a lot specifically we can do other than continue to do a good job, continue to meet the law, to meet the requirements of the law, and to adhere to our policy. Sometimes restoring public trust is an hour-by-hour scenario. It's a minute-by-minute. If there are, my message, and it's not just this, but it's a variety of policy and criminal actions. We may not find out today, but we will find out. We will. Unfortunately, some of these things just have to go through a certain time period to come to our attention. But I would say, and I think what I'm saying to you, sir, is not unlike what I tell my command every day. We are going to root out problems. We are going to root out corruption. We are going to root out, if not illegal behavior, moral turpitude type behavior wherever we can. Because as I say, this black eye to us affects all of our colleagues across the nation in one way or another. A great question. First of all, I mentioned it's 3 phases, so basically it was with at least 3 others. We move them from one officer or training officer to another for those reasons. Because not because one might overlook it, but or overlook problems, but because one might not recognize them in those particular instances. You realize when we're training, they have to go to a certain number of incidents to be to have them learn, right? So we move them, and I am confident there was nothing. They do daily reports, the training officers. So anything would have been picked up in those daily, called DORs, daily reports. Yes. Well, it understandably causes distrust immediately. And as I say, my own personal experience in another state with this was we encountered, especially women, maybe on car stops or something, where they were immediately defensive or immediately concerned. And I've put out to our staff just this morning that issue some patience with individuals because, I'm going to be the last one to sit here and say you have nothing to worry about. I don't think we have anything to worry about. I think that we have done our due diligence in this process. But I would advise people to trust their gut, adhere to our directions when we have to give them, but also be aware that things do happen. Well, I think I will tell you that until really this complaint came out, this was not widely known. In fact, it was hardly known because we didn't want to hurt more prosecution. So some of our staff is just learning this in the last, this morning or in the last few days since Wednesday. So I will say I have no idea, but I do want to point out that sometimes these things tend to unite us in ways that is kind of hard to imagine. That we're proud of our profession, and I stand with the people not only here but my 200 employees that we do a great job every day, and we should be proud that we rooted this out. We should be proud. No department is going to be untouched by something, but we should be very proud that we stood together to bring this about. So in an odd way, I think the light at the end of that tunnel may be a little improved morale in an odd way, not for reasons you might expect. Anything else? Do you have anything coming in? Very good. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate your coming when we call.
We need to hit the road if we're gonna beat the traffic.
All right. What? Maybe we'll just beat the traffic tomorrow?
UCLA at Utah. This, to me, is an amazing game. First and foremost, is Cam Rising back? Is Brent Keithy back? A lot of people have said this is the game they've circled. This is the game they're returning. I don't know right now. I don't know. I don't have insider information. I'm cautiously optimistic they'll be ready to go here real soon. But I don't know if it's going to be this week, next week, the week after that, what have you. So let's just operate right now with the information that we have. If Cam Rising's in, just know he's a gamer, great runner. Even though he's coming off a knee, will they still be willing to run it as often? But he's extremely accurate, does a really good job, just a top flight competitor. But if he can't go, then it'll be Nate Johnson again. Nate Johnson, think about what he did in the fourth quarter against Baylor. He was legit. Now, didn't throw it a lot, but he obviously is very athletic. The guy's a gifted runner. I believe he's like a 10-3, 10-2, 100 guy. So he's got great top-end speed, and he finished the day against Baylor 6-7 for 82. But you think about what they're able to do, man. He had 32 yards on the ground on the game-tying touchdown. So this guy is a spark on offense, and he's very difficult to contain. So it's going to be very, very important for UCLA to be mindful, if he is the quarterback this weekend, of his legs and what he can potentially do in the open field. The big question in this one, it's UCLA, it's Utah. We know what they're trying to do, right? Who can more effectively run the football? Now, the Utes have been terrific running the football up to this point. At least 100 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown in 28 straight games. It's the longest active streak in the FBS by a Pac-12 team since Oregon had 34-game run from 2011 to 2013. So they are on a unprecedented run of being able to run the football. But they're going against a rush defense that is terrific. So far, UCLA just 2 yards given up per carry in 23, which is in the top 10 in all of college football. So who's going to be able to run the ball when UCLA's defense on the field against Utah's offense? I think it's good versus good type of matchup, and I can't wait to watch it. The other thing, you can't sleep on UCLA's rushing attack. Now, they have cracked 100 yards in 35 consecutive games. Third longest active streak in the FBS and third longest streak by a Pac-12 team in the last 20 years. So you know Chip Kelly's going to want to run the football. You know their tandem of running backs are going to get plenty of opportunities both between the tackles and on the perimeter, and they're going to try to cut this defense in half with some of the looks that they have. Here, I think, might be the biggest question in the game. Can Utah rattle the true freshman quarterback, Dante Moore? Now, Moore is a phenomenal player. I mean, he's a true freshman, thrust into the spotlight, obviously took over in the second half of the Coastal Carolina game and has not looked back. 615 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 1 interception to go with a 63% completion rate through the 2.5 games is pretty dang remarkable for your first college action. Now, he's not a guy that's going to run around a lot. He's not a guy that's going to really beat you with his athleticism. He can keep you honest. He's not a statue by any stretch, but he's not a guy that's really going to take off and not a guy that you need to be really worried about on a third down scramble situation. But as far as where he's at in his development, he has not handled pressure well up to this point. He has not. And he's just like any other young quarterback. If guys get in his face, it's really uncomfortable. You talk to any young quarterback that's thrust out there early in their career, the biggest difference between high school and college is the defensive line play and how quickly you have to make decisions and how quickly those defensive linemen will get in your face and make your life very difficult. Right now, under duress, Dante Moore is just 3 of 12 on the 19 plays he's been pressured. He also thrown an interception. He's been sacked 4 times. So under duress, which, by the way, against Utah, I think it's a high likelihood that he's going to feel some heat from time to time. He has not been at his very best. But when you give him time and you give him the opportunity to survey downfield, the guy is really talented. Unbelievable accuracy, unbelievable ball placement for a guy of his age. And on passes that have traveled more than 20 yards downfield, he's 7 of 10 for 275 yards and 4 touchdowns. So a big part of the plan for UCLA. Can they protect their freshman quarterback and allow their receivers, who I think are really good, plenty of time to develop on routes downfield where he can hit them in stride and hopefully turn it in 2 big plays? I like Utah in the game. I would take the points. 4.5 is too many. I think UCLA will keep it close. But going on the road to Utah, hostile environment with a tenacious defensive front, that might just be a little bit too much for Dante Moore to handle, at least right now.
It's amazing. Papaya Global's AI validation engine validates millions of data points for us every month.
Papaya's AI seamlessly connects global payroll to any data source, reducing manual effort.
This analogy is almost as good as the real thing.
Payroll and payments, one platform.
6 games matching ranked teams, best weekend of the season. We've broken it down in 2 previous episodes, and now what you really want, the picks. This is the College Game Day podcast for Friday, September 22nd. Reese Davis and Pete Thamel here. Stanford Steve joining us. Last week, a study in mediocrity with a couple of 6-4 records and a 5-5. But the 5-5